Hi, this is Teresa from Fans of the Forge, and we're here with Matthew Barry from the Lion Spear episode, and we're recording at Dragon's Breath Forge in Wolcott, Connecticut. So, Matthew Barry,
yes.
Not Matthew Perry, and we apologize.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I spent a lot of my life being Barry Matthews, too.
Oh, okay.
What I never understood was Martha Barry. My drug companies gave me prescriptions for Martha Barry, but whatever.
Hopefully they were close to what you actually needed.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So when you were on your first round, you had to pull a mystery material out of a barrel.
Yep.
How did you feel about that? Just
I was actually relieved because it was real steel.
okay.
It wasn't, here's a piece of a car. Like, well, what kind of metal is it? I don't know. We knew what kind of metal it was, so that was fine with me. That actually was a relief.
And then you had to make a hatchet out of that.
Yeah, that's that's the first time I thought I am so dead because I've never made a hatchet. So luckily, I just sat there and said, all right, I've seen this on the internet. How did they do it? And I just kind of ran through that in my head and made an attempt at something I'd seen at one point.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, we had to know where your first thought is, oh crap, I don't know how to make an axe. But it worked out pretty well for you. You made something.
Yeah, it came out. I did a little screw up, but then I had a welder, so I covered up some problems, and it survived. That was the big thing.
Yep. So you had to clean up the eye because a little off center, and you did that.
Not really. It was still off center, but
at least you attempted to fix
closer.
that.
Yeah.
So you were working on fixing it. It splintered the handle. Or you were
I was
working on the installation?
I was trying to get the head to drop down more, and I had a flared bottom on it, and I must have tilted it and hit it, and so it splintered. And I didn't want to take it off because then it would be that comfortable. And then I remembered there's glue, so I just glued it back on, and it was fine.
Yeah. And then you went in for testing with the railroad tie chop.
Yep.
No damage, so that was good.
Yep.
And then you moved into round 3 where you had to make a Maasai lion spear.
Yeah.
It's a 23 to 25 inch blade.
Yeah.
And had the sockets in it needed to be 8 to 10 inches in length. So how did you feel about the need to make a spear?
I was bummed. I wanted to go on Forge and Fire and make knives and swords, which is what I make, and I get a hatchet and a spear.
Oh, no.
So I was like, why me? So I thought about it a lot, and I think I pretty much got my head around it. The basic problem I had was I kind of was looking at spears, and I underestimated how wide that socket really needs to be to stand the lateral stress. And well, as everybody saw, it didn't take it. Made it. If only I had made it a little bit bigger, because it actually cut all the way through the spine of the pig. It's just that in going through the pig's spine, it just went over that threshold and snapped. And if I had just a little more, having made it all the way through the spine, it probably would have just gone right through the pig.
Yeah.
Which would have been awesome.
Yeah.
But,
so
I'm not a spear maker.
But that was your Forge and Fire, experience.
Yeah.
And that ended your Forge and Fire thing. But we have some general questions for you. What is your favorite steel or Damascus type?
Ooh, well, that's a good question. My favorite steel depends on what I'm making. I love to make kitchen knives out of 01 because it produces a really hard, really sharp blade, but you have to have, most people don't use it because you have to have a kiln to control the temperature very carefully. And then for most other blades or the blades I like better, like swords, 1075. I like to keep the steel nice and simple and not deal with alloyed stuff. And I mean, eventually I may change my mind, but right now 1075 is the big winner for me.
You have a customer?
Yeah, customer asking prices.
Someone's curious about how much these are.
25 and 140.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully they buy the 140.
Yeah. Those were beautiful also.
Thank you.
What exactly were those, the $140 things?
So those are copies of, it's a pendant.
Okay.
And the original's in the Swedish museum. And it was, back then they thought they had power, and that was Thor's hammer. And luckily the Swedish Museum is nice enough to put on, high-res digital photos of pieces with a ruler in the picture next to it, so you can see exactly what size they are. And I just love that piece. So I carved a copy in wax, and I make them.
Nice. So back to knives for a little bit. What's your preferred style to make? You said kitchen knives and...
Swords. I mean, that's the whole point for me in the end, is getting to swords. Just because, I don't know, I always wanted to make swords when I was a kid. I just like swords.
Nice. What's your favorite non-blade item to make?
Rings. I don't like selling them because they have to be a specific size, but I like carving rings, and there's all sorts of crazy medieval rings that I would just love to make. The problem is you make it once, and somebody says, yeah, but can you make that in a size 10? And then it's like, oh, now I got to carve it all over. So I'm trying to figure out how to do rings in such a way that I don't have to carve it all over again, each size, because that just gets tedious. It's fun to carve it the first time. It's okay to carve it the second time. It's really tedious the third time.
The one that you showed me before, where you have the piece and then you have the band, that seems like a good way to get through it.
Because that was a flat ring. Yeah, that works really well if I can just cut it to length and roll it. A lot of the rings, though, are very three-dimensional, and there's just no way to roll it. So one of the things I've been trying to think about is having a top part and having side parts and bottoms, and casting those in wax all separately. So then what I can do is I can take the top, which I carved once, put on the sides for a certain size, and the bottom... And basically assemble it in wax out of components and then cast it. And that way I only have to carve things once or twice, and I can still get the sizing right for people.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, if I ever get around to it, it should be fun. But I'm making a sword now, so.
Yeah. Do you have a piece of best beginner's advice? Advice for beginners?
Ooh. Take a blacksmithing lesson and learn how to hammer, because everybody picks up a hammer, holds it like this, and smashes the metal. And I can tell you from personal experience, you will get tendonitis wicked bad. And bladesmiths, somebody said to me, bladesmiths want to be blacksmiths when they grow up. And I kind of agree. You really, if you learn how to hammer properly from a blacksmith, who's the most likely person to teach you, then everything's easier. And you can pick up the rest of it. But if you spend a lot of time with the death grip on the hammer, you're not going to make a lot of progress. You're going to get tendonitis, and you're going to say, oh, I give up on this crap.
Well, that's it for my questions.
Okay.
Pleasure talking to you. Thank you for spending time with us.
No problem. This was fun.
And fans of the Forge, like us and all the good stuff. And bye.